record. Okay, let me leave this one meeting. Okay, hold on, wait a minute. I'm gonna make myself the host. There we go. Yes, you're the host now. Then I'm going to leave. Okay, so we are live on I was about to say YouTube. We are live on Zoom. And today we're going to be talking about anger. Okay, how anger affects us, and also our mental and emotional state, and also some things we're going to touch base on. A couple of things. How we process this anger, because we can all process this anger a little bit different, but we just want to make sure that we are not internalizing our anger. So let's get to the bottom of all of this. Who's ready? Who's ready? Who's ready to talk about some anger? I am. I think talking about it is a good thing. That's why this is called Color Conversations. And we're gonna talk about it. All right. So let's talk about some of this anger. So we have that justifiable anger, some of those things that, we're not in agreement with, say like things that are going on in the world and society, those things of that nature. And also things such as we didn't agree with, slavery, those type of things. So that anger is justifiable because now we are taking a stand for that. And when you take a stand for something, it's justifiable. Doesn't necessarily mean that that's always a good thing. Okay. Passive aggressive. Those are the people who ignore you when they're upset. That's not called turning the other cheek. That's called ignoring, and that's called passive, because you're not actually addressing that anger, and that's a problem because you need to address what's actually going on with you. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say always address it right then and there, because there's a time and a place for everything, just like there is a time to actually talk about what you're upset about. So we don't want to do things such as, where our emotions are so riled up to the point where we can't even hold a conversation. That's not a good thing either. So, and the assertive one is the positive one, is just a justifiable one as well. See, assertive is you feel so frustrated that you want a change. It's for a positive change though. So that's the justifiable one. That's the one we were talking about. So anger is only not good when it is a harmful to you and to others. That's when we internalize all that anger and build it up all in here and decide to use it. So that's what we don't want to do. We do not want to internalize our anger, because that's not a good thing. Some ways that we don't necessarily have to internalize that anger, and this is just a quote unquote mock trial right now I'm going to do another session about anger. But see, I didn't know how to record because, I'm just still learning on this Zoom app. So hopefully I'm doing okay. But getting back to it. So the anger part, basically not internalizing anger. Anger is a healthy and an unhealthy thing at times. So the internal part, when we internalize our anger and we ponder on things that frustrate us and ponder on things that basically hurt our mental and emotional state on a regular basis, then it can turn into something very, very toxic, and we don't want it to blow up like the World Trade. That's something we definitely don't want. So we definitely would like to basically address it. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what's going on. Let's talk about how we feel about that anger. Let's talk about how we feel. Um, let's talk about how we feel about certain issues, and talk about how you feel about how you feel in that moment. Sometimes, the moments may cause you to be a little bit more upset because it's something that you might have been going through at that time. But those things can be addressed and they can be talked about, and we don't necessarily have to internalize them. There are some things that maybe needs to be helped through maybe some counseling services as well. And it's nothing wrong with getting counseling. So let's address that now. It's nothing wrong with getting counseling. It's nothing wrong with getting therapy. It's nothing wrong with getting help. That's what we're here for. That's what people are here for. Um, God placed us here for a reason. And we're here to not only help others, but also be a vessel of light in others' lives. So let's try and, address those things. So back to what we were talking about. Sometimes anger could have been a learned behavior. If someone didn't teach you how to process your anger because they were angry as well, and mind you, nobody is at fault here. We're just addressing the fact that everyone, you know, we get raised from individuals that maybe don't know how to process their anger either. So, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to continue that cycle. So at some point you can break that cycle, and you can always say to yourself, the individuals who have raised me were raising me because of what they knew and what they knew how to do. So maybe we know how to do something different, or maybe we know how to do something a little bit better, and or maybe maybe that's that solution that you were raised with in your family does not work for your family that you have today. So those are some of the things that we also have to address and look at as well. So, but your mother and your father, they wasn't wrong. Nobody's wrong here. People can only raise you the way they know how to. So that is something that we have to learn as well. We can only do what we know how to do. We can't do anything outside of what we don't know how to do until we learn something different. Learn something different, learn something new. So that's another thing. And taught, basically, that anger can be taught. It can be taught to not be able to process anger well. You could be taught to not be able to understand those emotions because maybe you were, quote unquote, a crybaby, and and maybe one of your parents said stop that crying, and you're like, uh, well, I'm upset, I'm frustrated. And maybe they were like, that's noise. And, they're frustrated by by the crying or whatever the situation may be, instead of actually addressing what's going on with you. Okay, what's wrong? Why are you crying? How are you feeling right now? Because sometimes we need to let out that emotion, and we need to let out how we feel about certain things and how we feel at the time. Or maybe you came up in a be seen and not heard environment. Crickets. Okay, so that's another thing. That's another thing that we can address. Sometimes we are told to be seen and not heard. So if you're not allowed to express yourself or your emotions, that may be a problem as well. And that may have trickled down into your adulthood. So you're not an expressive person. Maybe you internalize those emotions. That's what we're not supposed to do. But I'm not telling you how to live your life. I'm not telling you what you should and should not do. I'm just giving you some insight of how it'll help you by not internalizing the anger, talking about it. So I wanted to see how this all panned out and how I basically, let me see. Do I have some other things over here? Let me use my site. Okay, let me stop. See, I play too much. That's my problem. But I'm going to stop this recording and I'm going to come back with another one. Hey, if you like this one, this isn't YouTube, so you can't like and subscribe, okay? All you can do with this is listen, and then when I bring the next one, you can listen to that one. And then we'll go from there.